ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ॐ अज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नमो विष्णुपादाय राधिकायै प्रियात्मने श्रीमद्भक्तिवेदान्त नारायण गोस्वामिनिति नामिने। श्रीकृष्णलीलाकथने सुदक्षं औदार्यमाधुर्यगुणैशयुक्तं वरं वरेण्यं पुरुषं महान्तं श्रीनारायणं त्वं शिरसा नमामि। त्रिदण्डिनां भक्तशिरोमणिं च श्रीकृष्णपादाब्जधृतये हृदि चैतन्यलीलामृतसारसारं नारायणं त्वं सततं प्रपद्ये। वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्णप्रेमप्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्णचैतन्याय नाम्ने गौरत्विषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमस्तुते। श्याम सुंदर शिखंड शेखर स्मेरहास मुरली मनोहर राधिका रसिक मां कृपा निधे स्वप्रिया चरण किंकरीं कुरु। तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। तवैवास्मि तवैवास्मि न जीवामि त्वया विना इति विज्ञाय राधे तन्नय माम चरनन्तिके। भक्त्या विहीनापराधलक्ष्यै क्षिप्ताश्च कामादितरङ्गमध्यै कृपामयि त्वं शरणं प्रपन्ना वृन्दे नमस्ते चरणारविन्दम्। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद। हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। So, first of all, I offer my unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of my most worshipable spiritual master, His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedant Narayan Goswami Maharaj. My unlimited obeisances unto the divine lotus feet of Satchidanand Thakur Srila Bhaktivinoda, whose disappearance day we just recently celebrated on Gundicha Marjan Day. And then my millionfold obeisances unto all our Rupanuga Guru Varga and my respects to all the devotees who are assembled today. So, by the causeless mercy of Shishi Guru and Gauranga, we have been studying the eighth chapter of Jaiv Dharam, which is titled Nitya Dharam and Vaishnav Behavior. And as we were discussing last time, a very important chapter, especially for the sadhakas, the aspiring devotees, because from the perspective of philosophy, it is easy to understand. We can read books, listen to the lectures, and we can understand a lot of philosophical points. But to actually reflect that in our behavior is a matter of realizing those truths. And to the level one realizes these uh, spiritual uh, spiritual truths, to that extent, one's level in bhakti increases. So, how does such person behave? That is discussed in this chapter. And our level of devotion is reflected through our behavior, through level of our surrender, through our surrender to the spiritual master, and through our behavior. So, last time we had discussed that those who generally follow the religious principles, that 10 different qualities that they may have. But then Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur explained that because none of those actually are related to bhakti, it is not guaranteed that even if one imbibes those quality, like speaking the truth, or not stealing anything, being very clean externally. So, like this 10 different religious qualities, but because they are not connected to bhakti, one may still not attain the highest fruit, which is Krishna Prem. So, and then he had where we stopped last time, he had quoted a verse from Srimad Bhagavatam where he had stated that someone who does not hear Krishna Nam, he is actually like an animal, because the perfection of human life is only if we use it for spiritual advancement. Otherwise, there is no difference between us and the animals. They also eat, we eat, they sleep, we sleep, they defend themselves, we defend ourselves, and they also have progeny, we also procreate. And we just do this in more advanced ways, and in ways that destroys the nature around. So in fact, in many ways, we are not even as good as animals. So the real purpose of human form is that we inquire about the supreme absolute truth. And he says, otherwise, they are like hogs, they are like camels. So, such strong words are used in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, he stated that for such people who have no interest in bhakti or in spiritual pursuit, for them, this question has not been asked. So, if you remember the question, this new Vaishnav who had come in the assembly of these exalted devotees had asked a question that someone who's following Nitya Dharam, the eternal religion, how does he behave with the others? So he says this question of behavior does not even arise for those who are not in the path of bhakti, because they are only engrossed in sense gratification. So, what he's going to be explaining now is only for those who are in the path of bhakti. So, from here, we start the next part of this chapter. So, Anantadas Babaji says that those who have adopted the path of bhakti may be divided into three categories: Kanishtha, which is neophyte devotee, Madhyama, which is intermediate devotee, and Uttama, which is topmost devotees. So, three categories of devotees: Kanishtha, who has just entered into the path of bhakti, Madhyama, which is intermediate, and Uttama, which is topmost. So, bhakti is a journey. When we take initiation, it is admission into the school of bhakti. Just like when we go to school, there is from kindergarten to fifth grade, there is elementary school. And then from sixth to eighth, you have intermediate. And then from ninth to 12th, it is high school. So, admission into the school means you have started the process of studying, process of learning. But actual graduation will take some time. And in each level, if you follow the instructions properly, you will graduate to the next level. Now, the understanding of these grades of the school is important. Why? because then you know that there is a path. You also know that simply because I have taken admission to the school, I have not graduated. And also, you know that someone who is in the fourth grade or someone who's in the seventh grade or the 11th grade, he has more knowledge than me. So you learn to respect your seniors. And those who are in higher grades, they learn to help those who are in junior classes. So the same perspective is when we understand these different categories of devotees. So when we say Kanishtha or neophyte, that does not mean that we look down upon them, right? So in fact, the truth is majority of the devotees are in this category, and we will see that because of what their neophyte nature is, how that is reflected in their behavior, and we see that all around, even within ourselves. So it's very important to understand these categories. One, because then we will know what our state is, in which category we are. Not so much to say, oh, that I am very advanced, but to stay humble and see that, yes, there is still the journey that I have to cover. Just like someone who's in the first grade, he still has 11 grades to go ahead. Secondly, we also need to understand these categories so that, as I was saying before, we can actually aspire to go to the next level. Shri Gurudev and our acharyas have always stated that we should not always try to stay in the same level. So if someone is at Kanishtha level, one should not always stay at this level. Now, how would you go from the Kanishtha to the next level if you don't even know what the next level is, right? So therefore, it is important to understand. Now, within each one of this, also there are again levels, and we will discuss that. The third reason why we should understand these categories is because then we can aspire for the association of the right kind of devotees. In bhakti, bhaktya sanjayate bhakti. So bhakti starts by associating with those who have bhakti in their heart. If you want to learn music, you have to associate with someone who knows music. But simply associating with someone who knows music, you may or may not become expert. Why? Because the person you are learning from, if he's just an amateur artist, he himself does not know, in depth. He can teach you something, right? But he cannot make you expert. So, for example, if let's say you wanted to learn sitar or some musical instrument. So, when I was young, I used to learn sitar, but I learned only up to a certain point because I was learning in school. The teacher was nice, but he had limited knowledge. Had I had the opportunity or the strong desire to get tutelage from an expert like Ustad Ravi Shankar. So he was a very famous sitar player. So then, because of his level of expertise, what he would be able to teach me, I was not able to learn from just a school teacher during the music lessons, right? So it was part of our curriculum. So that time we were learning. So therefore, it's also important to understand the different levels of the devotees so we can aspire for the right association. Because someone who's in the first grade, he certainly is friendly with everyone in the first grade. But the first grade students cannot teach you what is in the third grade. So let's say if someone is very brilliant and he wants to learn what is being taught in the second or the third grade, then someone who's in that grade can help you. But someone who's at the same level cannot really help you understand those deeper topics. So that's another reason that we should understand this. And finally, as Sri Rupa Goswami also explains and also which is the point of discussion in this chapter also, that then we will also be able to behave or interact correctly with each devotee. We will also discuss this later on. So, with this understanding, let's start the discussion of these three categories of devotees. So, again, the first discussion is of Kanistha, neophyte devotees. That does not mean that these devotees have to be looked down upon, but we can understand why someone is neophyte and then also assess our state. So he says, Kanistha are those who have embarked upon the path of bhakti but are not yet true bhaktas. So they have taken admission into the school, but at the same time, they have not really understood the real essence of bhakti. So let me try and see if I can share this. Okay. Um, so there is a verse, and this is discussion in the 11th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam in the second chapter. So this is where the Nav Yogendras they come to Maharaj Nimi, and Maharaj Nimi is asking different questions. So he inquires from them that what are the different categories of devotees. And then one of the Navyogendras, whose name is Havi, he states, Archayam eva haraye, ujam yah shraddhaya ehate, natat bhakteshu cha anyeshu, sa bhaktah prakritah smritah. So he's saying Acharyam eva Haray. Acharya means the spiritual master. Haray means the supreme Lord. So with great faith, they worship the Guru, the spiritual master, and also the deity of the Lord. So one may question, well, that is the most important part of bhakti. If someone is has worshipping his guru and is also worshipping the deity of the Lord, then that person is a great devotee. Yes, he is a devotee, but he is not a is still a neophyte devotee. Why? Because he says, let's see. He says that natat bhakteshu cha anyeshu. What he does not do, he does not render service unto the other devotees and to other human beings. Such a devotee is called prakritaha. Prakritaha means a neophyte devotee and also called a materialistic devotee. That means there's still some contamination. There's some contamination, and what that contamination is, we will discuss in their execution of devotional service. Now, we see this, right, in our interactions. We see that with ourselves also. When the spiritual master comes, of course, devotion to the Guru is the backbone of spiritual life, of devotional life. So one has natural Shraddha for the Guru. One also has Shraddha for the deities. But in our interaction with the other devotees, we do not behave with the same level of respect, right? So here he says that yes, it is important, it is true that Shraddha is the seed of bhakti. So that seed only then grows slowly. It is called the bhakti lata beach. So that from beach, the creeper of bhakti grows, and that goes all the way to Golok Dham, to the lotus feet of Shri Radha and Krishna. But one's bhakti is only effective when he worships Bhagwan with Shraddha, and it is still not Shuddha bhakti unless he worships the bhaktas as well. So he's saying, yes, if you are worshipping the deity, which also we will discuss later on, but without any faith that this deity is the form of the Lord and the Lord is the supreme, like those who are Panchupasak, they don't have faith that the deity is actually the Lord, right? So they use the deity, that form, only for the purpose of meditation. Their goal is to merge into Brahman. So their worship, because the Shraddha is not there, that even can't be called real bhakti. It is, later on will be discussed, it's called Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas. But he says, still, if the person is worshipping with faith, but he is not has respect for the other devotees, does not worship the devotees, then it is not called pure bhakti. Bhakti does not develop thoroughly as long as he fails to do so. So now he's saying, yes, bhakti will come, but bhakti also manifests in different levels. So the full power of bhakti does not manifest if one is at the neophyte stage. His shraddha is only limited to respect for the guru and the worshipping of the deities. So we'll discuss this more, but one point to understand here is, why is he saying this? So, and Krishna also in Bhagavad Gita, at many points, he explains this Atmavat Sarva Bhuteshu, that only one who comes to this level where he can see everyone as oneself. How one can see as oneself? When one sees everyone connected to Krishna. When one sees that Krishna as Paramatma is residing in each and every living entity, then one will see everyone as oneself and will not harbor any kind of bad feelings, will not have the tendency to criticize, will not have feelings of lust, greed, anger towards the others. And these, Kam, Krodh, Lobh, Moh, Mad, Matsarya, these six enemies are there because we are in the bodily consciousness, and because of that bodily consciousness, we also see others as separate. Prithak Bhava. We'll discuss that also. And even though we have faith in the Guru, but we see others as not necessarily the devotees of the Lord. So everyone is Krishnir Nityadas, but we're still not at that level at the neophyte stage. So therefore, the full sun of bhakti does not manifest in the heart of such a person. Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita, Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini Shuni Cha Ev Shopake Cha Panditaha Samdarshinah. He says someone who has Vidya, means knowledge, and because of knowledge, humility comes. Vidya Vinay Sampanne. So, if one is actually understanding the essence of transcendental knowledge, then he is bound to become humble. If one is only learning the scriptures for the purpose of establishing oneself as a great scholar, then reading the same Bhagavad Gita, reading the same Srimad Bhagavatam, one will become very proud. Whereas reading these scriptures, if one is doing it in Sahaj Bhav, in a mood of surrender, then he's bound to become humble. So he says, one who has knowledge and humility, Vidya Vinay Sampanne Brahmane Gavi Hastini. So in a Brahman, in a cow, in an elephant, Shuni Chaev Shwapake. So in even someone who's so low as a dog eater, he has equal vision towards all of them. Some Darshinaha. And Krishna states in Bhagavad Gita that only someone at that state can actually achieve me. Why? Because only at that stage, and this is the stage of an Uttamadhikari, which we will also discuss, one comes to become completely free from all kind of contamination which are there because of bodily conception. So then he says that this type of bhakta has barely entered the doorway of the practice of bhakti. So they have just taken an entry into the process of bhakti, and therefore they are still not at the stage where they are able to give proper respect to each and every devotee according to their level. He quotes from Srimad Bhagavatam. This is a beautiful verse from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna, he went to Kurukshetra from Dwarka with all the queens. And there the Brajbasis also came, and the Rath Yatra that we recently celebrated, as you all have been hearing, the mood of Rath Yatra pulling the cart is that the gopis, led by Srimati Radhika, are are pulling Krishna back to Vrindavan, because Srimati Radhika, even though she met Krishna in Kurukshetra, she's saying that it is not the same mood. There is no Jamuna, there is no the feeling of Braj, that mood of love is not manifesting in Kurukshetra. So when Krishna was there in Kurukshetra, all the Vedas personified, they came as rishis and offered beautiful prayers to the Lord. So there Shri Krishna says, Yasya Atma Buddhi Kunape Tridhatuke Swadhi Kalatradishu Bham Ijjadhi Yat Tirtha Buddhi Salile na Karhichit Janeshu Abhigyeshu Sa Ev Go Kharaha. So here he's saying that if one considers Yasya Atma Buddhi Kunape Tridhatuke, so this body is made up of material elements, Kaph, Vat, Pit. In Ayurveda, these three things are talked about, and the imbalance of these three cause all kind of ailments. So it says one who only considers this body which is like a corpse, because once the soul leaves, it is dead. So basically, our body without the soul, all these elements have no consciousness. But he considers that to be oneself. Swadri kalatradishu bham ijyadhi. And all that is connected to him, his wife, his children, and other relatives as his own. And yet tirtha buddhi salile na karhichit, who thinks that going to the holy places simply is to take bath in those holy rivers, but does not associate with the devotees in the holy places. So, so if you go to Haridwar, you go to Brindaban, and go there, especially people go to Haridwar to take a dip in the Ganges. Why? To purify themselves of all the sinful the sin that they have accumulated, right? Now this Ganges, how does it purify herself? She purifies herself by the touch of the saintly devotees. And those saintly devotees, whom even Gangaji is aspiring for their association to purify herself because of all the sins that have come into her from others who are bathing in her. Now we go to that holy place, but don't associate with such exalted devotees, don't hear Harikatha from them. Then Krishna is saying, such people and who never hear from sadhus who are fully conversant with the absolute truth. So such peoples, again, you go to Brindaban. Yesterday also I was explaining, people go to Brindaban. There is a famous temple, Banke Bihari, and long lines are there. People are standing for hours, and such, in heat also standing, and just to go inside, sometimes there is so much chaos, sweating like anything. They go there and they probably get 10-20 second darshan of Banke Bihari. So very nice, beautiful deity. It's always good to take darshan of the deities. But then what they do, they come out, they'll go and have some lassi, and they'll eat some nice savory, some other, because there's a lot of sweet shops and other shops right outside the temple, buy a few things and drive back to their home in Delhi or wherever they have come from. So the real benefit of coming to Brindaban is not attained, because there's so many exalted devotees in in Brindaban. If you don't go and associate with them, hear Hari Katha from them, render some service unto them, then going to that holy place is actually of very limited benefit. So what the going to Braj can give you, you will not get the full benefit. So I was explaining yesterday also. So when we were in India, many years, 2-3 years, while staying there, every weekend we will go to Mathura when Gurudev would be there. And I don't remember that we went to visit any temple unless Gurudev would go. Sometimes he would go to Radha Damodar and Janmashtami, he would go to the Janma Bhumi. Otherwise, so many devotees will come from Delhi, but the only desire was to stay there in the mutt, hear from Shri Gurudev, do some seva. Nobody even wanted to step out of the mutt. And it is only if one has that level of devotion to hearing the message of the sadhus that we can make some advancement in bhakti. So, and then he says also someone who simply regards the worshipable deity form to be simply transformations of earth, such as wood or stone. So again, if you think, oh, this deity is simply stone, like we were discussing the other day, in Rath Yatra also, when the previous a few years ago, I think it was the government of Congress or some party there, and they thought, oh, why we have to have these daitas who are there rendering service, and then why we have to have these all the pujaris and the brahmins to bring Jagannath from the temple to the Rath. It's just a carved deity made up of wood. So we can have our own workers. So they prohibited all of these devotees who traditionally, upon the instruction of the Lord Himself, have been rendering these services for ages. And Lord Jagannath would not move from his place. They tried and tried and tried. He did not move an inch. So the deity is not simply stone, but if we are or just piece of wood, but someone who's thinking like this, he says such a person is no better than an ass or a cow. This is the words of Sri Krishna himself, right? So the Lord himself is saying that if that faith is not there, then of course he's not going to reciprocate. You are only going to think this is stone, and that's how your heart also, worshipping the deity, our heart should become so soft. It should become so much full of rasa, because Shri Vigraha is Krishna himself, is the Srimati Radha Govind Dev Ji, Radha Raman Bihari, so many beautiful deities, right? But if we are not doing that worship with the right mood, the heart will not become imbued with the mellows of bhakti. So, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur says that these two verses that have been quoted, the purport of these verses is that one cannot even approach the threshold of bhakti without worshipping Bhagwan in the form of deity. Now, some very important point he's going to explain. So, worshipping the deity is a very important part of bhakti, because those who do not even believe in the form of the Lord, like the Brahmavadis, so many of them just meditate without anything. So they sit in a room, empty room, and thus meditate. So for them, of course, there is no scope of um, attaining the mood of devotion. So he says, if one rejects the deity form and resorts to logical debate alone to deduce the truth, his heart becomes dry and he cannot ascertain the true object of worship. So we typically see that those who are Brahmvadis, their heart becomes very, very dry. Krishna therefore says in Bhagavad Gita also that kleshaha adhiktaraha tesham avyakta asakta chetasam. Those who worship my unmanifest form, kleshaha adhiktarah tesham. Slowly, slowly they experience so many difficulties and miseries because the heart becomes so dry. So though they of course have no access to bhakti, then even if one accepts the deity form of the Lord, but has no understanding that this is the Lord Himself, right? Then, like there are Brahmvadis, as we have discussed before, also they do Panch Upasana, they worship five different forms: Lord Shiva, Lord Ganesh, Surya, Devi, and Vishnu. But again, their understanding is, or their belief is, that these forms are just temporary and we only need that form for the purpose of fixing the mind. Otherwise, aham brahmasmi. I am also Brahman and I'll also become that Brahman. So there also is not bhakti. Then third, those who are devotees, right? So you have you entered the path of bhakti. But he says, yet even when one accepts the deity, so this is the third category, it is essential to serve him in transcendental consciousness. Okay. What is transcendental consciousness? Shuddh Chinmaya Buddhi. So Chinmaya means conscious and Shuddh means transcendental, pure transcendental consciousness. In this world, now he explains what does that mean. So he says in this world, the conscious entity is what? Chinmaya Vastu is the Jiva. So we see so many things around us, right? Cars, buildings, furniture, name it, everything, so much objects, so many different objects we see, electronic gadgets, so many things around us. It's all unconscious. Everything dead. Such so in the entire Brahmand, this huge planet Earth, right? So many things are there. But everything is just dead matter. What is the conscious element? The conscious element is only the jiva, the living entity. So he says, in this world, the only conscious entities is the jiva. And among those living entities also, those who are devotees of Krishna are endowed with pure consciousness. So therefore, they are Shuddha Chinmay. So everyone, whether it's bird, animals, trees, or others, humans, who are, maybe not devotees, they are completely into material enjoyment, but they are still conscious entities. And those who are devotees, they are Shuddha Chinmay. And Krishna is also Shuddha Chinmay. The difference is we are Anu Shuddha Chinmay. We are atomic consciousness. Krishna is Brihat, complete, absolute, transcendental, supreme consciousness. So, conscious entity. So he says both Krishna and devotees are pure conscious entities, and in order to understand them, it is essential to have Sambandh Gyan. Sambandh Gyan means the knowledge of relationship. We discussed this also previously in Jaiva Dharam. So there is Krishna, who's a supreme Lord, then the Jivas, the living entities, who are his Tatastha Shakti, marginal potency, and then the external energy, which is the material manifestation. So the relationship between the Lord and the Jiva, the relationship between the Lord and Maya, which is his Bahiranga Shakti, the external potency, and the relationship between the Jiva and Maya. These three relationships, it is important to understand. And this is called Sambandh Gyan. When we execute the limbs of devotional service, Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Archanam Dasyam, Padasevanam, Archanam Dasyam Sakhyam, Atma Nivedanam. So all the limbs of bhakti, starting from Shravanam, when they are executed with the knowledge of Sambandha Gyan, then we make proper advancement in bhakti. So otherwise, the full sun of bhakti is not manifested. So he says, if one is to worship the deity with Sambandh Gyan, with this knowledge, then one must worship Krishna and serve bhaktas at the same time. So he's saying, if one does not have this Sambandh Gyan, if one does not understand the position of other devotees as well as the other entities, that means he is not executing devotional service correctly. And because of at the neophyte stage, at the beginning stages, because one does not have this knowledge or this realization, and it is natural because one is in the beginning stages, but at the same time, one should be cognizant of this. And that's the reason why it is important to understand these categories. And because of this, we interact with devotees in the way that causes conflicts and so many issues. See, even among the devotees, we see institutionalization. There are, situations where there's so many groups created. All of this is a manifestation of the neophyte state. Okay, therefore, he's saying that the worship is not complete, it's not completely proper. This type of adoration and respect for the transcendental reality which is endowed with faith is known as Shastramai Shraddha. So, if one has this faith that Krishna and his devotees have to be respected, not just the deity, but also the devotees of the Lord, he says this is called Shastramai Shraddha. Shraddha, faith, which is based on the principles enunciated in the scriptures. But the worship of the deity that lacks this knowledge of Sambandh Gyan, the relationship between the different aspects of the transcendental reality, this is called Lokiki Shraddha. So there is some faith, but it is not transcendental faith. It is not based on what the scriptures say. It is based on some mundane, materialistic understanding. And that this kind of deity worship is not Shuddh Bhakti. So today in our temple also, we celebrated the 13th um, Vigraha Pratishtha Utsav, when the deities were installed at our Shri Govindji Gaudiya Math in Houston. And as you heard, Sripad Padmanabh Maharaj was also explaining the difference in the mutt or in a Vaishnav temple, the understanding of who the deity is and the understanding of the deity in the other temples. And we will also discuss this in uh, in the next part. So he says that this is not Shuddh Bhakti. Those who have reached this threshold of bhakti have been described as follow, and he quotes from Hari Bhakti Vilas, where it says that Grihita Vishnu Diksha Vishnu Puja Paro Naraha Vaishnavo Abhihito Abhigyai Itaro Smat Avaishnavaha. So, who's really a Vaishnav? He says learned scholars have determined that a Vaishnav is one who is initiated into Vishnu mantra in accordance with the regulations of Shastra and who's engaged in the worship of Sri Vishnu. So someone who is in a proper parampara, who's taken initiation into the Vishnu mantra and is doing the worship according to those with the right mood, everyone else is non-Vaishnav. Their worship is not Shuddh Bhakti. So he says those who are Kanishta Vaishnavas, the neophyte devotees, he says they are the ones who sometimes just out of hereditary tradition may, or because uh, being prompted by worldly faith to imitate others by taking initiation into Vishnu mantra and worshipping the deity of Sri Vishnu. So because it's a family tradition, they will take the mantra, especially happens, in India a lot, and or everyone else is, taking mantra, I also will take the mantra, but no understanding of the Siddhanta. So this, which is done simply out of emotions or simply out of some mundane faith, this is the cause of neophyteness. So such materialistic devotees are not Shuddh Bhakta, rather a shadow-like semblance of bhakti called Chaya Bhakti, Abhas, is prominent in them. So he is going to explain now two very important aspects, what is called Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas and Chaya Bhakti Abhas. So before that, let's discuss from Srimad Bhagavatam. In the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, Lord Kapila, he describes the three within the Kanishta devotees, within those who are um, at this stage of neophyte bhakti level. So he explains that they execute bhakti also in mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. None of this is pure bhakti. So the first one he explains, Abhisandhayo yo hinsam dambham matsaryam evava samra samrambhi bhin drig bhavam mai kuryat sa tamasaha. Tamas means mode of ignorance. So their worship is, so those who are doing deity worship, but they are envious, proud, violent, and angry. And here he uses the word prithak bhavaha. Prithak means the mood of being a separatist. This is my temple, this is my institution. You cannot come here, you cannot do this. And if someone comes, then they will ban you, they will become violent, become angry. All of this, what Lord Kapila is saying, that when worship is done with this kind of tendency, and who is a separatist, this is in the mode of ignorance or mode of darkness. Then he says, better than them are those who are doing in the mode of passion. Vishayan abhisandhaya yash ashwaryam evava archadav archayat yomam prithak bhava sarajasaha. So these are those who are doing in mode of passion. But what are they doing for Vishayan abhisandhaya? For the motive for material enjoyment, fame, yash means fame, ashwarya means opulence. And we are seeing this becoming more and more prevalent nowadays, right? So temples have become a source of great income, right? Recently, you must be following the news of Ram Janmabhoomi temple in Ayodhya, great opulent temple built, and those who were interested to take care of the donations that people out of so much faith come and give, with the understanding that this will be used in the service of the Lord and his devotees, they were embezzling those funds. Why? Because they are using those funds for their own personal enjoyment. So temples, in many view that if I open a nice temple, I can have, not only me, but my generations can live nicely because donations will come. And then I will become very famous and there will be lot of opulence coming. So where is bhakti in this? This is not bhakti, this is in mode of passion. Then Lord Kapil Dev, he's explaining this to Mother Devahuti. He says, Karma nirharam uddishya parasmin va tat arpanam yajet yashtavyam iti va prithak bhava sa satvika. So the third one is in the mode of goodness. But what this mode of goodness is also not bhakti. Why? Because the devotees worshipping the Supreme Personality of Godhead, with he offers the results of his worship, but with the desire to become free from the entanglement, from the inebrities of fruitive activities. So there is still some mundane material desire. So this is still not anukulyan Krishna anushilanam. This is still not Shuddh Bhakti. So this is Bhaktivinoda Thakur explains very beautifully in another book called Bhakti Tattva Vivek. We have studied this at the temple also for some time. Very beautiful book where he first explains what is Shuddh Bhakti. And then he says that there is something called Bhakti Abhas, which is not Shuddh Bhakti, but it is semblance of Bhakti. It appears to be Bhakti, but it is not Bhakti. And there he explains two categories. First called Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas. And then he explains Chaya Bhakti Abhas. So Pratibimb means reflection. When you're standing in front of the mirror, you see your reflection in the mirror. That reflection is separate from you. When you move away from the mirror, that reflection is gone. Then The other one is chaya. Chaya means shadow. So when you stand under some light or in the morning or evening, when the sun is there, then there is a shadow. And as you move, the shadow goes with you. So the shadow is connected to you. So while your reflection in the mirror is not connected to you, the shadow is connected with you. So Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas. It is Abhas meaning semblance. It appears to be Bhakti, but it is not Bhakti. And he says this is simply duplicity, shrewdness, and crookedness. We won't go into the detail, but in Bhakti Tattva Vivek, he explains three categories of Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas: those who are Nirvisheshvadis, those who are doing bhakti, as we were just discussing from Srimad Bhagavatam, only for but the purpose of material gains, thinking it to be just a karma, right? Not bhakti, but just karma. And then those who are again with an impure mind, executing devotional service. So explains three different categories of Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas. And here he says, those who are neophyte devotees, so those who have taken, who are here the Kanishta Adhikaris that he's explaining. So he's saying they are not doing Pratibimb Bhakti Abhas. So an important point to understand. So what bhakti they are executing, it is not that they are doing something which is out of duplicity or crookedness. So it is not certainly that category of bhakti. So what category of semblance of bhakti it is? Says this is chaya bhakti abhas. It is not shuddh bhakti because there's still some contamination, and that the definition of bhakti, where it's anukulyen Krishna anushilanam, that executing bhakti with a mood anukul bhav, mood which is pleasing to Krishna, which is, sorry, not pleasing, which is favorable to Krishna. It is not with that bhav, not that mood. Therefore, it is called bhakti abhas. So he says that the this bhakti abhas is also the result of great fortune because it is the preliminary stage of bhakti, and people can gradually develop from it into Madhyam and Uttam Vaishnav. So he says, even if one is doing the semblance of bhakti, still it is a great fortune. Now, why it is abhas of bhakti? It is because of the various coverings that we have. So last chapter we discussed about I and mine. Because of the bodily identification, we consider our physical body to be my real identity and everything that is connected to it as mine. And different combinations of this, as we discuss, I means I am male, female, black, white, Indian, American, educated, ignorant, rich, poor, diseased, healthy, so great musician, great writer, so many different designations. And similarly, mine. This is mine, that is mine, my family, my car, my money, so my temple, so many different designations. So this is what upadhi. Shri Jiva Goswami, he explains that the when each one of these covering that covers the true intrinsic nature of the soul is an upadhi. It is a avaran, means covering. Every designation is a covering, and the more coverings we have, the soul does not we don't see our or realize our true self, the intrinsic nature of the soul, which is pure and love for Krishna. So just like when you have, let's say you have a very shining diamond, and you cover it with many different pieces of cloth because it is precious, right? You've covered it with it, and then you put it in a box, then you put it into another box, and another box, then in a room. Now, even if it is shining, has so much light, you cannot see it, right? So unless you remove each one of its covering. Now, as you remove the coverings, as you start getting closer to it, some light will start reflecting, some light will start manifesting, but it will be still not complete. So, as these designations are removed, then we start realizing our true self. Therefore, it says in Uttama Bhakti, definition of Uttama Bhakti, Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam Tat Paratven Nirmalam. Sarvopadhi, becoming free from all designations. In our state, it is not easy, but this is the um, the yardstick or the definition of pure bhakti. Sarvopadhi Vinirmuktam Tat paratven nirmalam rishikesha rishikena sevanam bhaktir uttama. When we become from all kind of designations. And therefore, being cognizant of this, Krishna is clearly saying that if you need to come to me, you have to be 100% pure, not 99.2% or 99.5%, 100%. So means sarvopadhi vinirmuktam. So at the stage of bhakti abhas, there's still many designations. But he says, even there one is fortunate, right? So even if someone is doing Chaya Bhakti Abhas, as long as one is not doing it out of duplicity or crookedness, which is Pratibim Bhakti Abhas, even this is great fortune. Because if one stays in the association of devotees and associates with the right type of devotees, right? And without committing any offenses, executes the limbs of bhakti with great mood of surrender, love, and affection, he says, then he can progress from being a Kanishtha to a Madhyama and then to an Uttam Vaishnav. But at the stage, he is within the Chaya Bhakti, with the shadow of Bhakti he is following, that he is still not a pure devotee. Such people worship the deity with worldly faith. And they can only behave with others according to the 10 types of religious duties, which he had explained earlier. So, the behavior that the Shastras prescribe for the Bhaktas does not apply to them, for they cannot even ascertain who is a true Bhakta and who is not. Now, someone who is at the neophyte stage is not able to distinguish between different categories of devotees. That is a quality that one develops when one comes to the stage of Madhyam or the middle level of a devotee. So, which we will discuss next time. Within Kanisht also, there are three categories: Kanisht Kanisht, Kanisht Madhyam, and Kanisht Uttam. So now, so very preliminary, as one progresses within the neophyte stage, also one gets to the Kanisht Madhyam, and then further develops, one gets to the stage of Kanisht Uttam. So next time we will discuss this. I'll share with you a little bit more detail. Very interesting and good to understand that what are the characteristics of these different gradations even within the Kanishta devotees. And then we will go to the discussion of Madhyamadhikari devotees. So we will stop here today. Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. So let's see if anyone has any questions or comments. It's a very important and interesting topic to understand the different categories of devotees. So anyone if has any question related to today's topic or what we have discussed, so far in this chapter.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
So the guru always has to be a Uttama Adhikari, correct? Otherwise, there is no, we will not get any benefit.
Good question. So, it's if you are if you get these from Shri Gurudev, every day there is a reel that comes, from Gurudev's quote, and today Gurudev is saying that one should accept a guru with proper understanding, by proper examination, and even if that takes time, one should properly test or at least ascertain that this is a guru at a high platform. Because otherwise, as you start making progress and then you go to your guru and you say, can you please explain to me what is the teachings of Sri Rupa Goswami, what is Rupanuga Bhakti? And then he will say, I do not know all of this. Or as you start understanding what Mahaprabhu came to give, then if he does not himself know, then he would not be able to explain to give. Now, he may be able to explain you the basic concepts of Bhagavad Gita, but cannot take you to the next level. So, now, according to the scriptures, someone who is only at that Uttam Adhikari stage, only he can give that highest thing to us. Someone who does not have $100 with himself, he cannot give you $100. If he has only $10, how can he give you $100, right? He can give you $10, but he can't give you 100. But you need $100 to purchase something, right? So to attain Krishna, we need Krishna Prem. And someone who has Krishna Prem can only, such a person can give us Krishna Prem. Such a elevated uh, personality can give Krishna Prem. So yes, someone who's at the Uttam Adhikari stage. Now, but an Uttam Adhikari, as we will study here, sees everyone with an equal vision, right? So he comes down to the stage of a Madhyam Adhikari, and then he preaches, because otherwise an Uttam Adhikari stage he can't preach. Now, another point which our acharyas have said, that someone may be Madhyam, is not Uttam, he's at a Madhyam stage, he may be Madhyam. He can certainly do the, uh, he can accept disciples, he can take up the responsibility of being a guru, but he should also understand what his own state is. And if there is an elevated personality, then he should guide his disciples to go to that elevated Vaishnav, and himself he should also go. Shri Jiva Goswami in Shat Sandarbha, he explains this in great detail, that if someone, a guru out of institutional mentality, prevents his disciples to go to an elevated personality, then him and his disciples all will fall down. So one can at a Madhyam stage be a guru, he can be an initiating spiritual master, but should always know what his level is and how much he can give, and he himself should also aspire for higher association and also guide his disciples if there is such an elevated personality. Okay. So see, the path of, just like when we go to school, the teacher in the first grade does not prevent her students to go to the second grade, right? Or to the fourth grade or the sixth grade. No. She actually feels happy that now my class has graduated and is going to the next teacher who can teach them more. So bhakti is not something for the purpose of creating institutions or organizations. That is required for the purpose of preaching. Yes, it has its own um, purpose, and that's why our acharyas have done such organizations, but it should not prevent us from seeking high association of high class devotees, right? Okay, anyone else? Any other questions or comments? Okay. If there are no questions, then we can stop here. Thanks everyone for joining. We'll continue next time with the discussion of three categories within the Kanishta, and then we'll go to the discussion of Madhyamadhikari devotees. Thank you so much. Shri Gurudev ki jai, Shri Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Bo.